This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas, in for my colleague Ephraim Graham, who is on vacation. Well, investors are hoping that stocks may have bottomed out after Monday's steep plunge. That drop came as China imposed new tariffs on U.S. farm goods and other exports, fueling fears of a possible trade war. Here's Charlene Aaron.
Some analysts think the market could fall farther after dropping since late January. Others think it may have hit bottom. They point to several reasons that stocks have been falling, including a possible trade war with China and other countries. China has announced new tariffs on $3 billion in U.S. goods, hitting 128 products, including pork, steel pipes, and apples. This comes on the heels of U.S. tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum.
The American steel and aluminum industry has been ravaged by aggressive foreign trade practices. It's really an assault on our country.
But some market analysts say fears of an actual trade war are overblown.
Very early this morning, the news came out that China was going to put tariffs on 1,200 U.S. products going into the country. It sounds like a lot. It's really a small fraction of everything that we send to China.
Another concern for the market has been the problems with big tech companies like Facebook's privacy issues and Trump's attacks on Amazon, which could indicate that the government could start regulating these companies. The president has criticized Amazon in the past. Monday, he tweeted, "Only fools or worse are saying that our money-losing post office makes money with Amazon. They lose a fortune and this will be changed." Analysts have pointed out that the top tech stocks had gone up so far so fast they were ready for a correction.
Amazon is still up 18% year to date in a market that's now probably down 3 to 5% year to date. So there's I look at it as Amazon and Netflix and a couple of these other really high-flying stocks that have been driving the technology momentum trade. This is a valuation correction.
And other analysts say the market needed to pull back after doing basically straight up last year, and the long-term outlook for the economy is still good. Growth was better than expected at 2.9% in the fourth quarter of last year, which shows that the economy could be on track to meet President Trump's goal of 3% annual growth. Many say the president's tax cuts have helped the economy pick up steam. Also, business profits are expected to come in very strong, which would be good news for stocks. Despite the short-term turbulence, many analysts still believe the bull market is alive and will eventually recover and set new record highs again. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlie. Here's a look at some of the other headlines we're following in the CBN newsroom. There could be a potential meeting between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia says Trump proposed the meeting when when they spoke over the phone last month. The White House is among a number of potential venues being discussed for the meeting. Both sides said they haven't started preparations for that visit. Nelson Mandela's former wife, Winnie Mandela, has died. She was 81. Winnie is remembered for being a champion of equality during South Africa's apartheid system. She will be honored by a state funeral next week. Israel announced a deal with the UN on Monday to resettle African migrants living in Israel, but hours later they put the agreement on hold. Under the deal, roughly half of the 35,000 migrants would be resettled to Western nations. The rest would stay in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced he was suspending the deal to discuss it with Israeli residents. You can find these and other stories at cbnnews.com. Speaking of immigration, President Trump says while Mexico and Canada have tough immigration laws, America's laws are an Obama joke. He wrote that in a tweet complaining about the difficulty of deporting people. "Our laws do not easily allow us to send those crossing our southern border back where they came from," he tweeted. In a separate post, he tweeted, "Caravans are heading here, must pass tough laws and build the wall. Democrats allow open borders, drugs, and crime." The administration is working on a new legislative package that will close immigration loopholes. American pastor Andrew Brunson has now served more than 500 days in a Turkish jail, as Chris Mitchell reports. After a recent indictment by the Turkish government, Brunson faces charges that could keep him in jail for the rest of his life.
The 62-page indictment charges Andrew Brunson with military espionage, claiming he is a member of an armed terrorist group. Prosecutors want a 35-year prison sentence for the 50-year-old pastor.
You can sum it up in that Turkey has literally taken the position that Christianization is terrorism. So they have no specific evidence that Pastor Brunson committed any crime. The fact specifically that he's a Christian and a Christian pastor is what they are equating as terrorism and the crimes that he has committed.
The American Center for Law and Justice represents Brunson, who has pastored and served in Turkey without incident for 23 years. After a failed coup in 2016, Turkish President Recep Erdogan purged thousands of political opponents.
Pastor Brunson was one of the Christians that was snatched up in this purge. Most of the Christian pastors had been deported, and Pastor Brunson was not.
Last year, Erdogan offered to trade Brunson for exiled Turkish leader Fethullah Gulen. Gulen is accused of being the mastermind behind the coup. Many see Brunson as a pawn in a high-stakes political face-off between the U.S. and Turkey. In 2017, the White House announced President Trump and Vice President Pence brought up Pastor Brunson's plight in their meeting with the Turkish president 3 times.
It's really kind of unprecedented in these types of cases that we have the President of the United States bringing this situation up every time he speaks to the President of Turkey.
In the meantime, Brunson suffers in a Turkish cell, missing major events like graduations and his daughter's wedding last year. In a recent letter to his wife Noreen, he poured out his heart. "I am very discouraged. Please have prayer for me. I love you. Can't handle the thought of growing old in this place without you."
I think more than anything, they need to be praying that even in the ebb and flow, the roller coaster of this experience, that he will remain strong, that he will remain just committed in his faith, and more than anything, just have the Lord's peace and day in, day out.
This Christian worker, hidden for his own protection, says he's heard Brunson continues his life's work while in prison, sharing his faith in Jesus Christ.
I got a chance to talk to someone, one member of our church, that knew a friend that was in the same jail with him and was talking about how this American guy was in there and constantly talking about his faith and wouldn't shut up.
On the political front, close to 500,000 people have signed a petition to release Pastor Brunson.
And that's very helpful for us in our advocacy to show the Turkish administration that really the world's eyes are upon this case and demanding the release of Pastor Brunson.
While it's a geopolitical standoff, this worker feels Brunson's case transcends politics, just like when the Apostle Paul was in prison.
Of course, this is not just about him. It's really about the Lord's work in Turkey, what's been happening in the Middle East. It's not him that's on the stand, it's really Christianity. In a similar way, Paul was put on the stand for Christianity. He was symbolic of the movement of Jesus at that time, and he stood tall, and I don't expect Andrew to do anything less.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, we're sitting down with Fox and Friends' Ainsley Earhart. She shares why she is so bold about her faith. And welcome back to CBN News. March Madness is over, putting an end to college basketball season. The Villanova Wildcats beat Michigan 79-62 yesterday for the 2018 NCAA championship title. Villanova guard Dante DiVincenzo scored 31 points for the team, the most scored against the Wolverines this season. This is the team's second victory in 3 years. A 13-year-old boy was miraculously rescued yesterday after being trapped in the sewers of Los Angeles for 12 hours. Officials say the boy had been playing with other children on wooden planks over an access portal to the sewer system when a plank broke and he fell 25 feet into fast-moving sewage. LA sanitation workers and firefighters found him in a 4-foot sewage pipe about 3/4 of a mile from where he disappeared.
Oh, I stopped myself because the tunnel started getting smaller, so I just stood up fast. And there was this big circle thing, and I just went up. Like, I just stood up there for the last 13 hours.
Wow, that's incredible. Hernandez was taken to the hospital and get this released just a few hours later. He only suffered minor scratches and bruises. Fox and Friends just had its best year ever with 1.7 million viewers each day, including one key White House resident. CBN's Jenna Browder sat down with host Ainsley Earhart to talk about the show's growing influence and the important role she plays.
So you get here very early. Walk us through what a typical day looks like for you.
So I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I come to work around 4, and I go to hair and makeup.
And from then on, it's nonstop prep for Ainsley Earhart until 6 every morning.
Lots of news going on down in Washington.
When she joins her Fox and Friends co-hosts on the curvy couch.
It's such a blessing. It is such a joy and an honor, and I realize the privilege.
One of the show's biggest fans is President Trump. What's it like knowing that the President of the United States is watching?
I think it's such a privilege. I know he watches all the channels, but I think to know that he's interested in our show and he enjoys our show, I think that's a great honor.
When it comes to what they cover, she says they're not thinking as much about the president as they are the average American in a place like South Carolina where she grew up.
Most families in America are living paycheck to paycheck. So we bring you the stories. We tell you why you need to care about it, how we need to keep our own family safe, what you need to know. And so that's what's important to me. It's not because I know the president's watching and we need to have a certain narrative.
One issue Earhart speaks boldly about is her faith. Where does that come from?
I'm so excited about what God has done in my life, and I love Jesus, and I can't hide that. And I really believe that if I ever did, that I would lose it all. I think God has blessed me because he knew I wasn't going to be afraid and I wasn't going to fear what the rest of the world thought.
Something she wants to impart to her daughter. Tell us about Hayden.
She is so fun. She has the best personality. When I walk in the door, I can hear her little voice and I hear her say, "Mama." And she runs from the playroom or from her room or wherever she is in the apartment, and she runs and jumps into my arms. And I say, "Give Mama a kiss," and she gives me a kiss. And she's just, other than becoming Christian, that weekend when she was born on a Friday, was the best weekend of my life.
Earhart has written 2 children's books inspired by Hayden. The first, Take Heart, My Child, and her newest, Through Your Eyes. If that's not enough, she has another book coming out this spring that's about her faith.
We have some quick headlines that were caught on camera.
And how she got to where she is today.
I am so grateful. I thank God all the time for it. And when I'm walking into Fox, still after being here for 11 years, I pinch myself and just say, "Really, God?"
In New York, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Still ahead, a modern-day wedding on a historical site that was the foundation of an 18th century church. We'll show you the rich history behind Paul Green Church. And welcome back to CBN News. The famed author C.S. Lewis once described history as a story written by the finger of God. That's certainly true when it comes to religious freedom. Wendy Griffith brings us this look at the life of one Christian leader and one church in American history.
Kara Schmidt and Vince Oliveri are getting married on a perfect June day in a most unusual place. Under this striking structure is the foundation of an 18th century church with an astonishing history. For over 45 years, the only clue of its existence was this marker. Then, in 1975, it caught the attention of a local Presbyterian minister.
I began to read and find what how significant a place it was. And the thought that came to my mind, your task is to shine the light on the man I really want to honor.
That man is Samuel Davies, the first minister at Paul Green Church and a key figure in the religious movement known as the First Great Awakening.
We see it in almost every colony. We see Great Awakening evangelists, we see revivals, we see these massive meetings, large-scale conversions. It really changes the face of America.
But there was plenty of resistance. Before the American Revolution, British law required membership in the Church of England. Failure to comply could result in fines and even imprisonment. In 1689, the British Parliament passed the Act of Toleration, allowing some Protestant denominations limited freedom. Samuel Davies became the first so-called dissenter licensed in Virginia. Despite frequent bouts with tuberculosis, he was asked to lead 4 meeting houses in Hanover and Henrico counties, with Pole Green as his base.
Being fully convinced that Hanover stood in greater need of a minister than any place I knew, I accepted of their call to settle there.
This is Samuel Davies' Bible, where centuries of family events are recorded, including his wedding to Sarah Kirkpatrick in October 1746. Less than a year later, he wrote this: separated from her by death and bereaved of an abortive son.
Because of that tragedy and because of his own sickness, he really thought that his life would be short. It motivated him. I mean, he really thought, well, if I only have so much time on earth to work for the Lord, I've got to make that count.
From the beginning, Davies drew large crowds, including slaves.
Never have I been so much struck with the appearance of an assembly as when I have glanced my eyes to so many black countenances, whom their masters generally neglect, as though immortality was not the privilege of their souls, nor the religion of Jesus their concern.
Not everyone in Hanover County was pleased with Davies' ministry, especially at this Anglican church, led by the Reverend Patrick Henry, uncle of the famous patriot with the same name.
If you were the Anglican minister, and that was the official religion of the colony, if you see the explosive growth of Baptist and Presbyterian churches, it in many ways is a threat.
Reverend Henry fought back with a series of letters to authorities in the Church of England.
I think it my duty to acquaint you with this man's behavior. I need not inform you of the present distracted condition of my parish, nor of the future disturbances I justly apprehend.
His nephew, the younger Patrick Henry, was 11 when Davies arrived. He attended Pole Green regularly with his mother, later attributing his own success as an orator to Davies' example. On July 1st, 1759, after 11 years in Hanover County, Samuel Davies delivered his final sermon at Pole Green. More than 5,000 people attended. 100 years later, Pole Green Church still thrived, as shown in these drawings by a Union soldier in 1862, the only images of the church that survive. On June 1st, 1864, Union forces tried to break through Confederate lines near the Totopotomoy Creek. Pole Green Church, caught in the crossfire, burned to the ground.
This is the original 4 acres we started with right here.
The church was never rebuilt until Robert Bluford came across the marker. Since then, he's been consumed with bringing the church back to life. One day, while with an archaeological team, he felt something under his foot.
Scraped the dirt aside, and there was this brick, whole, complete brick. And within an hour, we uncovered the complete footing of this.
You're kidding.
This building.
This is the first house to come down.
Renowned architect Carlton Abbott also caught the vision. He urged Bluford to purchase adjoining land, removing houses to restore the area to the way it was in the 1700s. Then came the question of rebuilding the church.
We thought about doing an image or a ghost structure, if you will. And I think what this church does is bring a simpler feel for how you can approach your religion.
Today, the site includes history lessons on Samuel Davies and the path to religious freedom in America. And it's become a popular site for weddings, like this one, where the groom is a PhD candidate in church history.
God's amazing grace has been preached here since Samuel Davies was pastoring here. Thinking about that actually even during the ceremony and as we were picking the place has just been really kind of profound.
A good foundation, indeed. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Hanover County, Virginia.
Amazing story. Here's one interesting fact. In 1759, Samuel Davis became the 4th president of Princeton University. Okay, folks, we have much more ahead of CBN News. We'll be back right after this. And finally on the show today, President Trump touted the economy and military at the 140th annual White House Easter egg roll. Some 30,000 people were in attendance, including CBN's Ben Kennedy.
It's a tradition that dates back to the 1800s. We're, of course, talking about the Easter egg roll, President Trump's second as the commander-in-chief. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump hosted kids on the South Lawn for the annual Easter egg roll.
Thank you all for being here, folks.
It was a big event for those who aren't that big at all.
Happy Easter!
2-year-old Henry Jones was among more than 1,000 kids to roll eggs across the White House lawn. Are we at the White House?
No.
No.
We're at the White House.
It's a tradition that dates back to 1878 and President Rutherford B. Hayes.
This is a special year. Our country is doing great. You look at the economy, you look at what's happening. Nothing's ever easy, but we have never had an economy like we have right now.
During the event, Trump faced questions on Dreamers after he tweeted earlier Monday that DACA is dead.
The Democrats have really let them down. They've really let them down. They had this great opportunity. The Democrats have really let them down. It's a shame. And now people are taking advantage of DACA, and that's a shame.
Christians also took this opportunity to share their faith with the little ones and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus.
As much fun as it is to roll the egg across the lawn, it's really important to keep the true meaning of Easter in mind.
Bottom line, the Easter egg roll was full of laughter, smiles, and all-around fun, but also a bit of skill rolling that egg down the South Lawn. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
That's a wonderful tradition. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We hope you will join us again next time. Until then, have a great day and God bless you.